So welcome everybody. And for those of you that don't know me and I don't know you, my name is Gia. Last name is Moody. And actually I've been teaching at the Art Center. It's been quite a while. Been teaching, I started actually with a figurative background and I taught portraiture for a long time there. So we're gonna do a paint along and I hope everybody's ready to paint. I'm going to be doing oils tonight. I gave a couple things for you guys to download. The first one was this lovely picture of a wave. This is down at Aliso Creek. It's one of my favorite places to paint. So we're going to be referencing that. And the second thing is this line drawing that I have here just posted on a piece of white board. So if we're ready, I'm going to start with my paintbrush. And I'm going to start with one color. I'm going to use kind of like a grayish blue. And we'll talk about colors in a little bit. But if anybody has, if you know your brushes, this is called, I use rosemary brushes. They're awesome, super cool. This is called an ivory short flat. And this is a number 4. So if you can see, the flat brushes are really cool because when they're short like this, they're used to scrub into the canvas. So here we go. I'm going to take my paintbrush. How I learned, actually, this is also from Deborah Hughes, and it's a great method. I use it every single time I go to paint outside now. She taught us to divide the canvas in thirds. So if you notice here, I just do it instinctually. It's almost the same. So I divide it vertical in thirds, and then I divide it horizontal in thirds. So if you make little dots like that, you can see, even if I draw down to the center, it's like tic-tac-toe kind of thing. And that gives me a couple quadrants, and I know where the center of my painting is. A good part of composition is like our wave here is, I'm going to use the 2/3 to a third. If you guys don't know what that means, it means basically my whole picture up here is 2/3 of the canvas, and the top third is just left as like the background. So that is the 2/3 rule. So if I look at my drawing outline and my wave, this really kind of will help because I've already sketched it out, and you guys should have a copy of this. It's got my markers of thirds here. And then I can come over here, and the first thing I do is just put a little line that shows the very top pink area that's going to be my horizon. So I'm going to sketch that in really quick, super easy. Grab a little terp. I'm using just a blue gray from Gamblin. You can use anything probably but black, which is pretty kind of harsh. So I'm going to come over here and I am just going to put like a shape for my wave that forms. And I stop right here on this first third quadrant. Okay, I'm going to move to the palette, and I'm going to talk a little bit while you guys finish drawing. It shouldn't take too long. I'm going to just talk about the palette that I use. White is on the left-hand side. Super strong color. I never use it out of the tube. It's always mixed for, it's always mixed. Second color to the right is cad yellow medium. So that's a warmer color. Most of these that you'll see on the palette have a warm and a cool side. So I always use the cad medium. The next color is raw sienna. It's that kind of a sand color. And the next color to that is cad red medium. Everybody knows the next color. If you're a painter, that's alizarin crimson. And that blue is not cobalt. That blue is ultramarine blue. Next to that is Viridian, and next to that is just ivory black. The other two colors that you see there are the Gamblin gray and Gamblin pink. And that's it. that's how I start when I'm doing a photograph. I just do a little line drawing. And at least I have something to look at and something to follow as I start painting. And let's mix some white. I'll give you a couple minutes. We're gonna mix white with a little bit of yellow. You can use any yellow you have, even raw sienna or, but just use a tiny bit of yellow because it tints super strong. So the first thing you do is, let's mix that white. So I can use the same brush. It's that short flat, and it's great for scrubbing in. And I don't have to have too much thought in this. I'm gonna dig right into my yellow, white, and I'm taking a big glob. You guys see that? And my foam over here is pure white, yellow. So I'm gonna scrub that in. I could be messy. I do not have to be nice and neat. This can go super fast. I can also leave a little bit of the outline of my drawing. It doesn't matter because I will cover that with paint. So this whole thing, you guys, is white. So you won't see much now because it's just going to be in white, and it's against a white canvas. So, but just wait because it'll change really quickly. If Elizabeth can share, she has a black and white photograph that it's the same photo that I handed you guys, but in black and white. There it is. So I just think it's really important to see stuff like this because it helps you see value. Black and white is a really great way to see color. If you look at this photo, you can see how simple. There's 3 colors in this black and white. There's a light, a medium, and a dark value. The light color is white. The medium color is like a number 5 on a gray scale, and the rocks are dark. So that's kind of how I plan this painting session. We're going to keep it simple like this, but I really feel it's important to look at a black and white image of a photo so that you can see clearly where your lights are, where your darks are, or where any shadow is. Okay. So make sure you clean your brush. You can always change brushes, grab another flat, short flat, because we're going to go in and put in the blue. We'll do this, the ocean color. So like I said on the palette, I had mixed up a little bit of ultramarine blue, a tiny bit of white. You guys know the further out in atmosphere, the cooler the color is. So the furthest away out here is going to be a little bit more of a solid kind of blue, which is cool. Ultramarine is cool. And then as it comes forward down to meet the top of the wave, as you look at the photograph, it kind of turns green. So I'm going to show you guys what pure ultramarine looks like with a little bit of white mixed in. And that's it. That is my ultramarine blue. And then I had already mixed on my palette a little bit of the ultramarine blue with a little bit of that green viridian. So Heather, you'll use a little bit of phthalo and see what happens with a little bit of white. So I mixed a little bit of viridian in here, and I'm going to scrub that in so you can see the difference between the cool blue as it mixes into the water that is coming closer to the top of the wave. So it's still cool in color. Viridian is super cool. Ultramarine is cool. And then as I get down here into the area that is closest to us, that's where it really starts to warm up. So I'm not going to worry about like the foam, the whitewash, that kind of stuff now. We're just simply blocking in color shapes. So my strokes on this are kind of horizontal. When I get to the sky, I'll probably do some vertical strokes that go straight down. Okay, and then the line between the ultramarine and the viridian mixed with ultramarine, I can smooth out. If I clean my brush off, all I have to do is lightly drag my brush across And I get like a nice smooth kind of transition. Okay, I'm gonna try to go in for my rocks. I've mixed up a couple dark colors, and I'm not gonna, you know, labor over if it's the right color. So you can mix a red into the black with a little bit of white. It's kind of purpley, like a mauve. You can mix pure orange with the black. It'll turn a little bit of a brown. You can, if it's too, you don't want like a weird brown, you can always add a little bit of ultramarine back into it to cool it off. But so I can scrub in. If you use a lot of turp, your dark colors, you paint thinly. The white, you should have put on a ton of white and make it thick and like viscous, thick. You can almost like, you know, touch it and it, you know, you can feel the paint. You want your lighter colors opaque, thick. Your darker colors, you can do them thin. It's kind of fun. So this was my second rock. You know, in the block-in stage, you can change that if you don't like your drawing, you're going in with paint. You can kind of redraw it as you go in. So we'll come back and talk about the rocks, you know, in the basic fundamentals of drawing and painting. Rocks have a top plane that reflects the light. Like if you ever learn the box method where you have a box and you shine a light on the very top plane of the box, catches a light, the sides are in shadow. So the same form elements apply to rocks for a painting. So for example, if I add a little bit of white, it should delineate that this rock has a top plane as well as this rock. And then this rock on the side had some whitewash kind of coming down into it. Okay, so the white was the first thing that we added. And if you can see, mine's kind of hard to see because it's probably was white on white. All this yellow area here, yeah, all the whitewash. Anything you see white that's in the photograph here, it's just a super simple block-in of white anywhere you see the whitewash. Okay. So now the green color. So green is a really difficult color to use. Viridian is super strong. It's super cool and cold color. To make green, what colors, 2 colors do you mix? A blue and a yellow. So you can also make a green that way. You could try it. It might not be the right value or the right shade, but it's okay. So I mixed up some on my palette and I'm gonna put a little bit of color down. It's kind of bright. So as I go down, I'm gonna add a little bit of yellow in here. Just as I start warming it up. But if you look at some of the areas have a lot of blue-green here. So I'm just gonna put it in. If I put a color down, you guys, even if it's the wrong value or wrong color, it'll allow me to look at it and compare it to something else. So maybe I think it's the perfect color and I go ahead and in my head, it's perfect. I go ahead and put it on the canvas. And then I find out like, oh God, that wasn't the color I thought it was. It's too dark, it's too green, it's too blue. And then I can adjust it. Play with that later. This part here where the wave comes up and just before it's gonna crest up and over, a lot of the times it gets lighter in color. So this little area in here can sometimes reflect light coming through. So I'm going to make just a note of that. And then now I can look and say, oh, I need this part of the wave in here is usually darker. So I'm going to just take my pure Viridian green and I'm just going to kind of rub it into these areas. And there's some blue down there. So I mixed some blue. I'm going to come back to my blue and just kind of put a little blue down. All right, so we have just looks like a bunch of different striations of color. And that's how you block things in. It's supposed to look super simple and super clean. The colors are reading pretty clean. All right, so the last thing I'm gonna do is put the green on the very bottom. I'm gonna just follow the photograph right there, that line. So I'm gonna go back to my green pile and just make it warmer and lighter in value. So it reads a little bit more warm. Okay, I think that's a good place to kind of stop. It should start to come together a little bit where it looks a little bit like the atmosphere of the ocean. So the next thing I'm going to do, we're going to wait a couple minutes so everybody can follow. The next thing I'm going to do really quick is, if you look at the handout again, under the whitewash, where the whitewash hits the rocks, it's a little purple in there, and that shows that there's a shadow because the light is being blocked from the sky basically, and it's under the water, so that turns dark and cool. So that's kind of a gray purple color. I'm going to mix up a little gray purple color, and that kind of goes throughout the wave if you really look. So right here where the green meets the white, I'm going to put a little bit of shadow here. I need to add some over here, but you can see the purple over here in my painting, right? There's a little purple there. And that shows that there's a shadow. Otherwise, we're going to have a big white blob going across, and now it's gonna be kind of fun to add a little bit of shadow to the light. So I'm going to go ahead, if you are in sync with me, mix up a little bit of purple, and I'm going to use for the purple ultramarine blue and a little bit of the alizarin crimson red and white. That's it. Keep it super simple. And I can test it to see on the canvas. Can you guys see that? Kind of? Yep. Okay, so that's good enough for me. I like it. It's kind of a purple gray. I don't want it too blue. And then over here, this is really important on this side. If you look at the handout, if you really look closely, right here, it's white on top, and then it's gray before it gets to the green. That means that there's no light hitting it, it's in shadow. So right along this edge, you guys, is going to be purple. So I'm going to put in a little bit of purple. Now I can blend it all in like I'm doing, or I could just put it down, lay it down and leave it alone and mess with it later. If it makes a big difference for you, if you can see it from far away, it means that it's working. Now I can go back to my photograph and look if there's any area that I see a gray color reflecting in the water, or anything that looks remotely not white in the whitewash. I can use that same purple color and just kind of tone it down a little bit. Like I see a little bit of gray over here at this rock, so I can just kind of come over and add a little dab. And this is really fun because now you can kind of see how it's starting to become something, and you can darken any areas that you feel need to be darkened or strengthened. That I forgot to tell you guys about is after you block in with this short flat brush, it's a good time to move on because the short flats scrub paint in, but when you start painting, it can also take off the paint. Like there's a way that if you use a longer brush or a longer flat, it puts paint onto the canvas, and that's what we want at this stage. So I'm going to get rid. You will be able to tell if you have a flat short and you try it. Once you start getting into it, it just kind of doesn't feel right and takes the paint off. So you have to switch brushes. I can go to a 4 flat long, or this happens to be an 8 long flat. So it's quite, it's like twice the size. Okay, starting to come a little bit together. The last thing I'm going to do, and then we'll take a break and I'll answer some questions, is I have that really fun seafoam green. This is kind of the color. It comes out of the tube, so I'm cheating a little bit. If you don't have this color, you could take your Viridian green with your cad yellow light and a little bit of white, and you can make this color. I can mix a little bit of white into it, take a little bit of turp, and it's going to hit the top of this plane here. You can probably see it. It's super light because it's still whitewash. And I'm going to fill the whole thing in, just like straight across. There's a little bit of lime green right here by that rock. I'll put that in. That's about it. There's some under this wave in here. And that's it, you guys. That is my block in. I'm done. Okay, so I think we had a break. Now let's go back. In the half an hour, we have a couple things to finish. We got to put the sky in. I forgot the sky. So you can make this color if you take a little bit of orange mixed with a little bit of like, it doesn't matter which orange, with some alizarin crimson red and a little bit of white. You should pretty much come up with a kind of a pinky fleshy color. And if you need to kind of mute it down, if it's too like bold or strong, you might like that. You can add a tiny bit of black to it, or blue. So it's kind of the color what the photograph shows. So it looks like mine's a little dark. I'm going to lighten mine a little bit with some orange. And then as things come down on the horizon, you know, there's always a little smog in Los Angeles, and you can see that where the water hits the sky at that horizon line. Usually I'll put a little bit of raw sienna or make it a little yellow. So everything is done. I can look at my painting and say, okay, what do I need? Do I want the water darker here? Maybe you do, or maybe yours is really dark and want it lighter. So there's a couple questions you have to ask yourself. What is working that you like, and what don't you like? And now's a good time to do that before we move on to a couple details. So I'm going to give you a little bit of time, look at your painting, and just make some adjustments before we move on to the rocks. Okay, so now let's talk about the rocks. Adeline had a question about the rocks. So I want you to watch something really close. I don't know, Zoom is kind of hard to see, but I can clean my brush. It's a little bit of wet with the turp. And because I have so much white paint here where this rock is, I can drag my brush straight across, and I can make these areas that need to be softened and to feel like water's crossing the top of the surface. I can do that. I like to put a little bit of more color here, which I'm adding a little bit of orange and white. And that's all you have to do. These brushes are fun because I can push up into the paint to make some marks. This is what I learned with John. You drag your brush up, especially into wave. You pull down and drag up. So try that in an area. You can do it on the rocks or do it on your wave. You're going to drag your brush down and push up. Face your canvas with the brush, push up into it. I have a long flat, so it makes it easy. But it'll get some of the dimension that you need. And the ocean's organic, nature's organic. There's no like hard lines in nature, as they say. So this is a great method of making some differences. And it's great for the foam. Watch, if I take this little area and just go straight up, that foam lifts right off the page and makes a cool little splash. And if you don't know how to do this, sometimes you can't figure it out. So try it. Having good brushes can help smooth areas. I can add more paint into them if I think there's an area where I need a little bit more whitewash, if I'm looking at the photo. And I can drag that paint down again. And I just kind of mess with it a little bit until I get what I want. And if I come over to this wave here, I got a ton of white paint there. So I could just do the same thing. I can brush up like the photo has. And then I teach the kids how to flick paint. You take a bunch of paint on the tip of a flat brush. You dip it with a little bit of turpentine, kind of pat it. And then I take my finger and I can get some spray over here. It totally flicks the paint all over it. Be careful if you're at home on a table that you don't want to dirty everything. But if you stay close to the canvas, you get some really nice effects of spray. I don't know if you can see that. Probably not. It's really fun. So the rocks, the top plane of the rock is in the light. I messed that up. So I can make that top of the rock. It's where it's closest to the water and the white. It still stays dark. I just grabbed a little bit of blue. I could put a little bit of blue in there because the blue is reflecting from the sky and it might look kind of cool. Oop, now that was too highlight of a light, but I can take that blue and kind of drag it on the top surface, go back to my dark and then make that dark again. And then I can do the same thing here. Where I see the dark, I just make sure I add a little dark where there's some darks. But I don't change the whole thing. If I need a little bit more of a shadow, I can come back and reestablish that shadow line. And I could just start having some fun.
Are we about getting ready to wrap it up here? Is everybody pretty much done? Or want to show their pieces or have questions?
That would be fun to see everybody's work. And then it's being recorded. You can always take it and use that or screenshot everybody's.